listening to Room 303 Radio.
Live from Tokyo.
This is Ground Zero at Room 303. We decided to record this show as an aftermath of the massacre of protesters in Iran on January 8th and 9th, 2026. At the time, my plan was a full hour of mourning of grief. I even made a playlist and called it Sugwari. Sugwari means the act of sitting in deep grief. I just wanted to sit in deep grief. I didn't know what to say in a world where politicians speak on behalf of people they never know or understand. They even speak on behalf of our dead. I can't possibly speak on behalf of one person, let alone 90 million Iranians. Those in internet blackout, a very blunt act of silencing. In Iran, in my country, millions of people are held at gunpoint. Military-grade gunpoints by a group of anti-imperialist holy men. Their armies of young men who are not their sons, the sons and daughters of those holy men, are more likely to be found in Toronto or on any given day than the streets of Tehran. Simultaneously, bombs are dropped on homes of people who have been on this land for thousands of years. By the only democracy in the Middle East and a country that brings the gifts of freedom with tomahawks. As freedom bombs free the Iranians of their national assets and infrastructure, internet blackout continues and I have not been able to talk to Maman Jan. My grandmother for weeks. I have been watching a video of Maman Jan, my grandma, a video I took just a year ago on Nowruz 21st of March 2025. As we were doing our usual tea time in our living room in Tehran, in it she's reciting a poem. These days more than ever, I realize why Maman Jan finds a 700 years old poem by Sadi the best use of the energy left in her voice. She sometimes likes to add her name instead of Sadi's at the end and chuckles. I miss hearing her chuckle. Here's Maman Jan reciting Sadi. I will translate the poem later.
چو عضوی به درد آورد روزگار دگر عضوها را نماند قرار تو که از مهنت دیگران بیغمی نشاید که نامت نهند آدمی.
You're listening to Golnar Shahyar, her song Maman Jan. She sings, do you remember the day by the river where we made a boat with our hands? Do you remember, with your honesty in your lullabies, we grew flying wings? Your beautiful smile like the sun behind the clouds, yet is constant and shiny. In my childhood, your pain and laughter charmed their way into the colors of my paintings. Here I am, a grown-up woman, who in your memories crumbles into herself in her solitude. Maman Jan, your dream will never die. These are some strange times. I am filled with emotions larger than my body. My home is burning. My home, Iran, is burning. War is in the homes. The war is in Afghanistan. War is in ICE detention centers. War is in waters of the Mediterranean on airboats carrying lives. Our world has failed. War is in Sudan. War is in Lebanon. War is in Syria. War is in Kurdistan since God knows when. War is in the homes of women who get beaten up and killed by the men who are supposed to love them. War is here. War has been here. This war will swallow us all. I think about Nowruz. People on my land have been looking at the sky, its stars and planets for 3,000 years. Our biggest celebration is the spring equinox, the marking of our new year. Nowruz means the new day, the moment the earth finds its relation to the sun, where darkness and light are measured exactly equal in the northern hemisphere. And I ask myself, in the depth of this darkness, in the depth of these painful days, where then is the equal light? I speak to you from this darkness, from inside this grief, from inside tears. This is an invitation for us to go into the heart of this complexity, to stop calling things complicated as a way to turn back, to close the door on questioning, to numb the pain and discomfort, to start letting in the meanings that don't fit in one sentence, and start seeing people who we cannot describe in one sentence, to start acknowledging what is in front of us, acknowledging those parts that don't fit the simplest and most accessible stories we are given. It is complicated means don't look. It's not worth your time. So many equally plausible sides to this thing. No one knows because it's complicated. Complicated is a door shut on the face of a question. On the question we ask, why are children dying on their own land, in their own homes? Why holy men talk to a God who likes child sacrifice, especially if it's done with bombs? I wonder, has the God of Abraham changed his mind? War is here and there is no more time for distance. War is here and it will catch the hem of all of us. Speaking of truth that does not fit into one sentence or a 30 seconds Instagram reel, a gift of these days was a poem by Reza Barahani. Poems carry the twistedness of these days better. They travel so well in time and space. Ismail is a long poem Reza Barahani wrote in 1981, 2 years after the revolution and 1 year into the Iran-Iraq war. He wrote this poem for the death of his friend, contemporary Iranian poet Ismail Shahrudi. Ismail Shahrudi doesn't fit our narratives these days. Nothing about his life and death does. Ismail suffered a mental breakdown from which he never recovered after he was arrested and tortured by the regime under the former Shah of Iran. In this poem, Ismail also refers to Ishmael, the son of the prophet Abraham, and the story of his slaughter, as well as to the soldiers of the Iran-Iraq war. Here's a dear friend reading some parts of it.
There's war. There is a war, Ismail, and the likes of those with your name are being slaughtered so that the lights of faraway lands can remain lit. The earth has leapt to the sky, Ismail. Bloody is the city of oil tankers, so that one day it can be exhibited in a museum. The oil tankers glide and go, and frightened whales of Oman above whistle toward the ocean. The world is a festive breakfast that, despite your desire, its wealth is being swallowed by its own ravenous appetite. There is a war, Ismail, a war. What a moonlight, Ismail, what a moonlight. Its light exposes the dying ones. Then the machine guns unleash the stars, and rockets toss homes up in the air like toys. They have destroyed the cities, but no one can destroy the earth. Others built Abadan. They destroyed it. They built Khorramshahr. They destroyed it. You should build it yourselves, so they don't destroy them. Khuzestan, you have lit the cities of the world. They came and destroyed you, made you dark and weak. Khuzestan, these were the ones who milked you. It was not our youth, it was them and those who have no understanding of air, sky, poetry, stars and love. And they only get excited when hoarding cheese, eggs, chicken and dishwashing liquid, and they eat and drink night and day, and with pockets full of dollars, they pass through squares with the slogans, "Long live" and "Death too." And in their own way, they make it clear that shouting "Death to America" will not solve a thing. That after the revolution, money will still rise up the oars of merchants.
I get a call from Maryam. She wants me to talk to Kurosh, her husband. I have known both of them since the time we were all in grad school. Now they have a 3-year-old daughter, Raha. Maryam is anti-war, Kurosh is pro-war. Maryam wants me to talk to Kurosh about this. As an aftermath of the massacre of the protesters in January, where military-grade weapons were used, Kurosh, along with some other people, thanked Trump on social media for helping us for the war, helping us against a regime that is not short of a foreign invader. I honestly admire Maryam and Kurosh to be able to share the same roof. I can't stand myself these days. You know, we all love home. I know Kurosh, he loves home. He says we, the people, would never be able to oust a regime armed to the teeth. He tells me it takes many weeks of this war to continue, and it still won't match the number of people and children this regime has killed and is killing as we talk, let alone the environmental and economic catastrophes they have brought upon the country that is nothing short of a war. They have been and still are executing teenagers and adults alike under a crime they call muharebe. Muharebe, this word, the darkness of this word, it gives me chills. It means to stage a war against God. It means to stage a war against this regime that represents God. Shervin, a 16-year-old boy, was arrested on January 8th in the protests. About a week later, a forced confession was broadcasted on state television where he was told for the first time that he was charged with muharebe. It was the first time he heard this word. He is so young that he did not even understand what that word meant. We are living in a world where a 16-year-old learns the meaning of a word during a forced confession broadcasted on state TV. A word that is a permission slip for the regime to take his life to scare the rest of us. How can a child commit a crime he doesn't yet know exists? So when I talk to Maryam to pass the phone to Kurosh, I hear him say he doesn't want to talk right now. Maryam insists. As I wait, I go through all these in my head. I don't want us to fall into a guilt-tripping debate. That is the status quo amongst us now, especially in the diaspora. I'm afraid he would call me a blood launderer of the regime. That is what some call the anti-war people. I am afraid he calls me a chapul, which is a wordplay with leftist, currently used by some people online as a swear word. They think we are idiots because we think there are things left to do besides getting bombed. I know we are both struggling, but I know he's not like them. I hope he's not like them. I am not ready to be called a chapul at 10 a.m. in the morning. There are some pro-war people that don't use that language. I see Kurosh and myself having two different answers to the same devastation and struggle. Kurosh and I chit-chat for a bit. He knows why we are on the phone. It's 10 a.m. and we are both ready. We think about these things 24/7. We always have been thinking about these things. There's always been war. I mean the war that started way long ago, waged by a regime against quote-unquote its own people. It made us calculate daily what we are willing to lose. We have cut ourselves from our roots and transplanted ourselves somewhere else. We said goodbye to everything we loved for a normal life that never feels normal. We know what it means to barter with life. Kurosh tells me, given how powerful the regime is, we need foreign intervention. Foreign aid, he calls it. He knows the foreign aids are aiding themselves mainly, but he thinks maybe it's our last hope. He's desperate for hope. He says he's fine for the oil to be taken. I get him. We as a nation have been losing everything. When you have nothing much to lose and the future looks bleak, war starts making sense. Every cell in my body wants to believe that and hope this war would be exactly what he thinks it is. Our answers to this impossible question have become our politics, and our politics have become our identities. We are desperate for answers. An identity we can finally wear. The ones before never fit us. The Iranian regime doesn't fit us. Western imperialism doesn't fit us. If Kurosh and I are not careful, we start identity wars. No one wins in identity wars. Back to the call with Kurosh. Kurosh says freedom has a price. For the sake of freedom, his life, or Raha's, his daughter, is a small price to pay. I rage. I tell him, you want to go die for freedom? Great, do it. Do it now. You don't own Raha. Raha owns herself. She's not an extension of you. She didn't choose this. She cannot choose this. She's a child. I think to myself, did Raha choose to be in Kurosh's calculations? Is she his means for an end?
اینجا رؤیایی نیست چشم‌هاتو به یاد بیار زخم و نان رو ببین خونه رو به یاد بیار اینجا رؤیایی نیست چشم‌هاتو به یاد بیار زخم و نان رو ببین خونه رو به یاد بیار
I think about Minab, the children of Minab. Are they our means to freedom, a story sold to us? In those attacks not too long ago, the so-called surgical attacks, an elementary school in Minab with 167 children got bombed. I shared the news on my Instagram. I just couldn't believe it. That was the first day of war. A friend replies to my story immediately. She says, I think it's them. It's the regime. To be honest, that was my first guess too. Not from the sheer hatred toward the regime, which is there, but actually it was a statistical guess. They have had a track record of attacking their own civilians for their narrative wars. Sometimes that is the result of their calculations. Remember January 2020, flight PS752, 176 people died? IRCG fired 2 missiles at a passenger jet minutes after takeoff from Tehran. They denied it for 3 days, and the first thing they did was scrubbing the crash site. We know what they are capable of doing. Kurosh and I agree on one thing only, that it is war and it has always been war. This war started a long time ago, since the strong men of the West erased our history and our faces. Since the former Shah erased the Kurds, since the Islamic regime erased the Iranians, since Taliban and US alike erased the faces and voices of Afghan women. I know the war has been here because Sadi's poem has been collecting dust on the headquarters of the UN in New York. The same poem Grandma sang to us early on, the one that says, "Human beings are members of a whole, in creation of one essence and soul. If one member is afflicted with pain, other members uneasy will remain." I really wonder, are the other members feeling uneasy at all? There's a war on human knowledge, on human beauty. The war started when men, whose take on history only spans 250 years, started dropping bombs on Isfahan while talking about civilization. Isfahan was called half of the world. They also dropped bombs on Hormozgan that knows years in the order of thousands. They dropped bombs on an elementary school with kids in them on the first day of the war. One of the students was Mikhail. What remains of Mikhail for all of us to see is some videos of him singing a song for his dad.
چه کردی با قلب فرزندم گذشتی از خودت و جا بگیرم رو داغت نبینم
The song Mikhail sings translates, "Father means warmth of the house. Father means strong shoulders bearing the weight. Father means hidden tears. It means a raining heart. Lots of sorrows behind his smile. What did you do to the heart of your child?" Journalist Elnaz Mohammadi shared on her Instagram account with a drawing of him. 11 hours before the deadly morning of that Saturday, 28th of February, the drawing was made. A white page torn from a sketchbook. On it, a school building. Above the school, the Iranian flag. 5 children in the schoolyard, and 3 missiles coming down on their heads. 2 sentences written in the sky above the school. In that drawing, children died and military force. Mikhail had misspelled children and military on the last night of his life. And if the American missiles hadn't reached the Shajar Tayyib school in Minab at 10:45 on the morning of that Saturday, the first day of a horrifying war, his teacher Razia Zamani, whose shattered body they searched for from that Saturday until now and never found, would have seen those sentences and taught him the right spelling. Shakiba Darikavand, the 31-year-old mother of Mikhail Mirdoraghi, hadn't seen the drawing until the next day. It reached her hands after she had identified her son in the refrigerated compartment of a truck and lost consciousness. Mikhail was in 3rd grade. He was 9 years old. On the first day of the war, when the American missiles arrived, he and 167 other boys and girls at the Shajar Tayyib school in Minab were killed. Mikhail's family were from Andimeshk. They had to move to Minab because of his father's work. Shakiba Darikavand, as she herself says, alone in exile with no one to take her hand, searched for her son from home to school while the whole city shook beneath her feet. She lost consciousness several times along the way and finally found him in the refrigerated truck, his face bloodied, his body intact, still holding his school backpack. Mikhail was buried 3 days later in Andimeshk, and he left behind one strange inheritance, a drawing in which he had even predicted correctly the number of American missiles that destroyed his school and took his classmates and teachers away in pieces. The innocence and aliveness of Mikhail's voice reminds me of Kian Pirfalak. I look up his age. Kian Pirfalak, 11th of June 2013 till 16th of November 2022. I count the years, 9 years old. Kian was also 9 years old. He was killed by the regime in the crackdown during the Mahsa Jina Amini protests. You might ask, what was a 9-year-old doing in the protests? Nothing. He was shot by a regime security force while sitting in his parents' car during the attack on Izem Market.
این پای خوب من درست کردم برای جشنواره جابر ابن حیان و میخوام الان برای اولین بار امتحانش کنم ببینم کار میکنه یا نه. اما نتیجه میگیریم که این کار میکنه. آزمایش ما با موفقیت انجام شد.
Millions of Iranians know Kian. We all lost him. We know he loved crafts and robotics. We know he liked to start his presentations on videos with this phrase, "In the name of God of rainbows." His God was the God of rainbows. Millions of us can't look at rainbows the same way anymore. Kian was a casualty to the regime, a price that had to be paid. Mikhail was a casualty for Iranian, American, and Israeli regime alike, a price they were willing to pay. I realized his life was cheap to some Iranians too. Some would say, freedom has a cost, it won't be pretty. What about many times more lives the regime has taken? They are right on numbers, I think, but to me, why do they sound so similar to the warmongers who calculate? The ones whose calculations include the lives of some other people, some other children who are not their children. Where is our humanity's ground zero? When some people find their own freedom a justifiable end achieved through the means of someone else's life, some child. Kian's life similarly seems like a casualty to the nice lady who was standing next to me in an anti-war protest in Tokyo. She was holding a picture of Araghchi, Iranian foreign minister. Does she know what he has done? I don't think war brings freedom, even if it does in an imaginary world. How on earth we got to this point, that children's lives are the cost we are willing to pay? Especially when those children are not ours. Isn't that human sacrifice? People who justify this sound so similar to some river to the sea strongmen who sell this idea to their nation that the path to security is through rebels and dead children. Also to those who brought upon the world the most primitive, uncivilized doctrines, the Monroe Doctrine, to the Truman Doctrine, to the Bush Doctrine. Those strongmen who define national security as something that needs to be quote-unquote defended on the opposite side of the planet. It feels like we all have internalized the values of these strongmen, the values that betray our own dignity, our humanity. If this is not ground zero, tell me what is. This song is called Home by Emel Mathlouthi from Tunisia. She also sang the song My Word is Free, and that became the anthem for Tunisian Revolution and the Arab Spring. I think about people who know what war is like. Likes of my mother, who did her nursing residency helping the soldiers wounded in the Iran-Iraq war. And I think about Grandpa, who fought in that war for 8 years. Grandpa knew better than everyone else how it feels to be fighting a war that is not his. He also knew better than anyone else how ugly and unholy war is. The war was initiated by Saddam Hussein in September 1980, a year after the revolution. Saddam's war was sponsored by the US. Grandpa passed a few years ago. I wonder what he would have said if he was here with us. He joined the army before the revolution in Pahlavi's time. He used to tell us that, and it was so important to him that to let us know that the first 2-3 years were defense, that we were fighting an imposed war, but not the remaining years. The war could have stopped so much earlier, but the regime decided to continue the war. Somewhere in their calculations, the lives of young Iranian men were exactly what they needed, even though many of those young men, sometimes teenage boys, were so young and untrained that their blood on those godless battlefields mattered more than the military objectives. How did they invite those boys and young men to fight their war, you might ask? First, they used all religious symbols and stories people thought of as sacred to describe the war that is happening. Sounds familiar? Their choice of story was the epic of Battle of Karbala. It was perfect. Karbala is in Iraq. They made it so that Hussein's story was resurrected to fulfill their narrative, so that the young men who are not their sons go to war. Young men who believe in the epic of Hussein, the story of 72 people who did not shake and fought a war they knew how it was going to end. They made parallels between sacred symbols, and the war made it sound holy, made it sound like it's worth dying for. They were so committed to this cause, to taking our youth to the battlefields, that they made music for it. They even chose the genre so well, a genre that worked best on teenage boys like Fahmide, a 13-year-old whose death was glamorized. He was likely listening to Ahangaran. Ahangaran earned this nickname, the Nightingale of Imam, for the melodies of martyrdom during the Iran-Iraq war that he was singing. His voice often was the last thing Iranian soldiers heard before death. The genre is what we call Nohe, Shia mourning songs, the kind sung at Ashura for the Battle of Karbala. When the regime decided to keep going, he chose the slogan, he meaning Ahangaran, "The road to conquer Jerusalem passes through the land of Karbala," as the title of one of his popular songs. He went regularly to the front to sing for young volunteers. Grandpa was a dedicated Shia, but he was secular in his politics. I know that as he never pressured us to worship his God. For him, it was between him and his God. What the regime did to what was sacred to him must have been deeply painful. He knew his own nephews were getting the idea to join the war. They were teens. Early in war, he traveled to his hometown, a religious Shia town. I hear he went there to lecture them hard, and if he has to, lock them down so that boys couldn't go to war. His nephew still went. He was never found. Those people who are never found in the Iran-Iraq war are called mafqud al-asar, the ones with no trace, meaning his body was never found. Grandpa could never forgive himself for not being able to stop them, and he never forgave those who continued the unholy war and who banked on his nephew's blood. Between 1 to 2 million people died from the 1980 to 1988 Iran-Iraq war. In those very urgent times, no one could talk about the war that was waged against women and their rights, or about the chain executions of the political prisoners and intellectuals. It was wartime after all. Those young men didn't know the clergy weren't worshippers of their God. Who could have thought they are so into earthly things like money and power? Every 5 or 6 days, if I'm lucky, I hear my parents' voices over a very expensive one-way call they have to make. My mother always chuckles on the phone. It's her way of lightening up the air. She asks me how I am. She's way more interested in me and how my days go than talking about her days. I tell her I'm fine, and we both know that fine is a relative word. 2 or 3 months ago, when the massacre happened by this regime, our conversation sounded very similar on the surface. Hello, Mama. Are you okay? Everyone okay? Family? Friends? Here, the meaning of okay is alive. Let me translate. I meant, did someone we know get shot? Did someone we know get arrested, executed? This time, because of the war, okay means, did any bomb fall on anyone we know? How about our house? Is it still there? We all know what we mean by fine when we call, based on the context. I tell her I'm fine. I'm worried about them. I don't tell her the rest of it. I don't tell her that my body, so far away from home, wakes up every day like a doll, does its things, cries, does its things again, crying. I didn't tell her that I'm only now understanding that cigarette she never could quit. She could never quit, that gaze of hers that always had a faraway distance to stare into. That pain her eyes had. I had never before been aware of the depth of her pain. That despair and longing I saw in her eyes, I always wondered what she's looking at. Who did this to her eyes? These days, more than ever, I finally get it. I feel like I get her. The same grief found its way to me, to a deep place in my heart, from a mother to a daughter. Somewhere so deep in my heart is burning, a place I have newly discovered. Me and my mother every day beside each other in different places, kilometers apart from each other, put our cigarettes to our lips and stare into this ruin. The current sensitive condition, the war, stops. It disappears. With the smoke of our cigarettes, even for a few minutes, that passes very quickly. I don't tell her that I feel closer to her more than ever. You can't say that to an Iranian mother, especially that you picked up smoking. To a mother whose whole life, whose whole struggle was this, that this pain would not settle from her eyes into her daughters. I tell her I'm worried about them. On the phone, she says to me, "Why? Aren't you safe?" She chuckles. "Be happy, my daughter. Your life is too precious to waste." I say, "Okay." I don't have the heart to let her eyes see mine.
افتاده بین خیابانی پر از فریاد، افتاده بین خیابانی پر از فریاد، و با گریه میپرسم دمداری گل سوری،
This is Qawqa from Afghanistan singing Ramin Mazhar's poem. Ramin Mazhar is an Afghan poet, journalist, and human rights activist born in Bamiyan, Afghanistan in 1995, and he gives me hope. He went into exile and is currently based in France. He was risking his life because of his words. A dear friend reads the translation.
You've fallen in a street roaring with screams. Through tears they ask you, do you still breathe, Scarlet Poppy? What is it you lack from the people of this world, when over me you hold such sacred claim, Scarlet Poppy? They come with tanks, with whips, with cleavers in their hands, while in your pocket all you ever hold is a pen, Scarlet Poppy. From the blisters of your voice, one clearly understands what memories of torment you carry, Scarlet Poppy. We are the tale of Jasmine and Hope, and yet we're left alone. What is it we lack from this world, Scarlet Poppy? Take it back.
Before this war began, Iran was already inside a crisis. 6,000, 33,000, 45,000 numbers kept appearing of those massacred by the regime. Numbers whose meaning we don't actually absorb, the numbers that will never be confirmed or denied. It's the world's worst gaslight. Media has failed us. The regime has failed us. We don't even know the scale of what happened in Iran. The zeros stopped meaning anything. Same as the zeros on our currency and the zeros in the regime embezzlement news. Somewhere among these zeros rests Raha. She was 23 years old, a student at University of Tehran, killed on the 9th of January with 6 bullets by the Islamic regime guard. We walked the same hallways in the University of Tehran, 15 years apart. We keep finding each other across distance, across time. She was from Fars province, from Qashqai tribe. We share that too. There's a photograph of Raha I won't forget. The way she dressed up, that ease, the aliveness, a cool sense of style that only a Gen Z can claim. Life is loud in those photos of her. The contrast with her death is almost unbearable. I watched a video of her funeral. People were dancing. This dancing is not ordinary dancing. It is the purest form of resistance. When a regime claims all your sacred symbols, banks on your faith, then families of those killed by the very same regime don't sing Nohe, since Ahengaran destroyed it for them. They danced instead, dance which the regime fears more than American tomahawks. They dance in defiance and with the deepest type of grief humankind can bear, the loss of a child. And they didn't want the regime who killed their beloved bank on the death of their children for their narrative wars. They dance and they dance and they collapse and they dance. In the video of Raha's funeral, her uncle speaks into a microphone. He says, Raha was full of life. Raha loved life deeply. I can hear in his voice how much it matters to him that we know about her life as much as we know of her death. He says Raha was in editorial team of a student magazine in her university, a magazine on women's rights. I started looking for what remains of her online. There is so much to know about her. In her last Instagram post, she posted a poem. It says, she loves, with purity, the particles of life, the soil, the sorrows of people, the noble sorrows. And her last tweet, less than 24 hours before those bullets silenced her, she says, For a moment, I could get online, and all I want to say is woman, life, freedom, forever. The regime has been at war with life, with dance, with freedom, everything we love. There has always been a war against the likes of Reha. Her name means free. Friends ask me, are your friends and family okay? I say yes. I keep it to myself that I have lost many friends. Reha is one of them. The bullets in Reha's young body were the result of a calculation in which killing her was cheaper than listening to her or even ignoring her. Reha reminds me of a song by Gulnar Shahyar titled, Tell My Mother She Has No Daughter Anymore. A friend reads the translation of the lyrics.
Take it back. Take back the right to kiss. This is a 1,000-year-old song, chanted by women and men, chanted by you and I, is roaring for freedom. You have been cutting the roots of this tree for years, thinking that it has dried up already. I swear, by all the blood that was shed, by our fallen tears, I will take back the right to kiss. I will take it back. Tell my mother she has no daughter anymore.
پس بگیر حق بوسه را پس بگیر این نوای چند هزار ساله است که از گلوی زن و مرد که از گلوی تو و من فریاد میزند آزادی
It is April 1st, 12th day of Nowruz, the new day. It has been 12 days since the light has won over darkness in the skies, but it is so hard to find that light on earth. I've been looking for light in places less known. I see light on the tip of the cigarette that my mother lights up in defiance. I see light in the voice of Nilufar Fuladi, who went through hell and saw death in the eyes, in a godless airboat for days in waters of the Mediterranean and survived it so that she can tell us what happens to human dignity on those boats, so that on the 12th day, a woman life freedom protest in 2022 from across the ocean in Paris, with a voice that even the ocean couldn't shake, her feet on very solid ground, she said, and I quote, "I was condemned to death because of my body. Why are you so afraid of women's bodies? You came out of this body, you drank milk out of these breasts." I see light in the voice of Ghawghaw and Golnar and the poems of Furuq. It is war, friends, here it is war, and it started a long, long time ago. What we see now is not a war between holy men worshipping different gods. It is a collaboration, a bloody show by strong men who claim they speak to Allah, Yahweh, or Jesus. What What they truly worship is the holy trinity of domination, exploitation, and oppression. I see light in the hands of those men and women, hijabis and unveiled, who took to the streets of Iran on March 8, 1979 to protest Khomeini's hijab laws. Those men who stood side by side with women and held each other's hands around the protesters to fend off the guards. Hengame Golestan says about that day, they were demanding the freedom of choice. It wasn't a protest against religion or beliefs. In fact, many religious women joined the protest. This was strictly about women's right. It was all about having the option. I see light in the memory of my grandfather, a Shia man who saw God in the face of his grandkids, a man whose religion and faith was between himself and his God, a true sacred place. This is the war waged on our dignity, the dignity of those of us who think children are sacred. And no belief system in the universe can ever justify this bloodshed. And no belief system in the universe can justify hungry children of Ahwaz walking alongside oil wells. And no belief system in the universe can justify a promised land that is built on top of dead children. Zan Zendegi Azadi, the revolution and its values directly speaks to the patriarchy. Woman, Life, Freedom, this slogan did not appear in 2022. It was created in Kurdistan. Jen Jian Azadi is from Kurdistan. As a motto, its roots trace to the Kurdish women's liberation movement in northern Kurdistan against the Turkish state in the early 1980s. Kurdistan is ancient land. Kurdistan doesn't sit well with any fascist force in history, a place that has been that has seen atrocities from Iranian regime, Syrian regime, Iraqi regime, Turkish regime, even from the US. They all failed the Kurdistan test for many, many years. Kurds have been subjected to so much injustice and discrimination, and yet they are anything but victims. Kurdistan has beautiful mountains, the best women horseback riders, and is also the graveyard of fascism. They are at the frontiers of this fight, and they have been carrying the torch of woman, life, freedom all the way to us. Zan Zendegi Azadi is for all of us in Iran, us in Lebanon, us in Sudan, us in the United States of America. If we want to truly fight fascism, we must understand Kurdistan and the struggles of Kurdish people. We must hold their pain close to our hearts. The pain of a tribe, a people who prevailed for thousands of years on those mountains, constantly under threat, yet they shine to this day. They even made Rojava. They hold their heads high. I am back at school these days, a different school, a school where we learn that the struggles of Kurdistan, Afghanistan, Sudan, ICE detention centers, and women's sovereignty over their own bodies are all relevant and connected, and we are all in it. A school where we learn about the ongoing war on our collective memories, the war on critical thinking. There's a war on questioning things. There is a war against our ethics and consciousness and our truth. A US general gave an order and tomahawks poured bombs on Mikhail's school and killed him and his classmates. An Islamic regime guard shot at Kian Pirfalak and his family. IDF soldiers killed Hind Rajab and Jawad Yunus. It is time we look at what is in front of us, the result of our collective consciousness. I think these days many of us have gone back to school, a school that's unlike any. A school where we learn what really matters. We don't call things complicated to avoid them. We invite complexity, a school where Furugh and Mahmoud Darwish are read in its classrooms. A school where we learn geography through the stories of resistance. A school where reviving the dignity of our most vulnerable is the goal of education. I see more schoolmates every day in this school, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down. If I had to choose a school song though, it would definitely be the song Yar Dabestani Man by Fereydun Furugi, my old school chum. The lyrics go something like this. My old school chum, classmate, you're with me and alongside me. When the cane of injustice is wielded over our heads, you cry and herald with me. Engraved on the blackboard, the names of you and I, the scars of lashes of tyranny have stayed on our bodies. My hands and your hands have to tear down this curtain. Who other than me and you will find the cures of our ills?
هرکه بیداد و ستم مونده هنوز رو تن ما دست بی فرهنگی ما هرز تمومه علفاش خوب اگه خوب بد اگه بد مرد دلای آنماش دست من و تو باید این پرده ها رو پاره کنه کی میتونه جز من و تو درد ما رو چاره کنه یار دبستانی من با من و همراه منی چوب علف بر سر ما بغض من و آه منی حق شده اسم من و روزن این تخت سیاه حکه بیداد و سرم مونده هنوز روزن ما دشت بی فرهنگی ما عرض تمومه علفاش خوب اگه خوب بد اگه بد مرده دلای آدماش دست من و تو بایدی عرضه ها رو پاره کنه کی میتونه جز من و تو درد ما رو چاره کنه یار دبستانی با من و همراه منی جور علف بر سر ما بغض من و آه منی حق شده اسم من و تو روزن این تخت سیاه هرکه بیداد و ستم مونده هنوز رو تن ما
Thank you for listening to Radio 303.
زردها بیهوده قرمز نشدن قرمزی رنگ نینداخته بیهوده بر دیوار صبح پیدا شده اما آسمان پیدا نیست صبح پیدا شده اما آسمان پیدا نیست گرچه روشنی مرده برفی همه کارش آشوب بر سر شیشه هر پنجره بگرفته قرار زردها بیهوده قرمز نشدند قرمزی رنگ نینداخته بیهوده بر دیوار. صبح پیدا شده اما آسمان پیدا نیست. صبح پیدا شده اما آسمان پیدا نیست. گرده روشنی مرده برفی همه کارش آشوب. بر سر شیشه هر پنجره بگرفته قرار. من دلم سخت گرفته است از این میهمان خانه مهمان کش روزش تاریک. من دلم سخت گرفته است از این میهمان خانه مهمان کش روزش تاریک که به جان هم نشناخته انداخته است. چند تن خواب آلود، چند تن ناهموار، چند تن ناهوشیار که به جان هم نشناخته انداخته است. چند تن خواب آلود، مشتی ناهموار، چند تن ناهوشیار، چند تن خواب آلود.